The video became the most viewed political live stream in YouTube history. Over 18 million people watched Naomi admit her flaws, own her humanity, and stand unshaken. The tide turned again, but with every victory came a new scar. Naomi's car was vandalized. Her staff received anonymous threats. One of her donors was doxxed and harassed into bankruptcy. The cost of truth was rising. One evening, Naomi sat alone in her campaign headquarters, staring at a faded photograph of her mother, the one who used to say, "You can't fix a damn thing if you're scared of the mess." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm so tired, Mom," she whispered, "so damn tired of proving I belong." She imagined her mother's voice replying from the picture frame, warm and strong. "Then rest, baby, but don't you dare quit." That night, Naomi fell asleep in the office chair. The dream of She dreamt of red velvet curtains parting and a little black girl walking towards a podium carved in stars. Election day came like a thunderstorm, disguised as a sunrise. Naomi wore a white suit, an ode to the suffraged who paved roads with broken bones and ballots. She voted in her old neighborhood, walking past crumbling stoops and wide-eyed children. Reporters swarmed, cameras flashed. She smiled through the anxiety. By evening, the nation held its breath. States turned blue, others stained red. Naomi campaign headquarters transformed into a cathedral of hope and pacing. Volunteers held hands. Sasha sobbed into a bowl of popcorn. Naomi stared at the screen, one thought thudding in her chest. What if I actually win? And then, at 10:42 p.m., it happened. The final stage. Pennsylvania called in her favor. Naomi Washington was the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. The room exploded. She stood frozen, not in disbelief, but in awe of what one childhood dream could survive, of what one voice could do when it is all refused to be silenced. But just as she stepped up to the mic to give her victory speech, a man pushed through the crowd, face pale, hands shaking. "Miss Washington," he said, handing her an envelope. "It's urgent." The envelope was marked with a government seal she didn't recognize. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a name, a date, a flight number, and the words, "Do not proceed to inauguration or your sister dies." Naomi's blood turned to ice. Her hands trembled. Her mind screamed. She read it again, then again. Sasha was across the room, laughing, hugging strangers. Obviously, Naomi didn't move. For a split second, she saw the two paths before her. One led to the White House, the other safety, but not hers. Someone wanted to stop her at all cost. She had expected resistance, but not this. Not hostage threat. Not evil that sounded like a thriller movie. Her security team rushed in. Phones rang. The celebration turned into lockdown. But amid the chaos, Naomi whispered to herself, "This isn't just a political war anymore. This is personal." And for the first time since she was a child pretending to be president with a cereal box crown, she wondered, was the dream worth the cost? In the hours that followed, Naomi disappeared from the public eyes. The media speculated illness, scandal, exhaustion. No one knew she was held in a safe house with Sasha, guarded by Secret Service, eating dry crackers and trying to make sense of the chaos. An emergency investigation traced the threat to a covert agency funded by dark money, old political families who feared what her presidency would mean for their monopolies. Evidence was gathered, names were exposed, the FBI launched arrests, but Naomi stayed hidden for 8 days. On the ninth day, she emerged, tired, solemn, but alive. She held a press conference and said, "They tried to break me. They tried to silence me, but I remembered who I am. I'm the little girl who stood on a picnic table and believed this country could be better. and I still do. So I will not bow. I will not break. I'm running and I'm going to win. Not just for me, but for every person who's ever been told their dream was too dangerous to choose. And with that, Naomi Washington re entered the race, no longer just a candidate, but a symbol of survival, of resistance, of what happens when a woman refuses to choose between power and love, truth and ambition. Her campaign didn't just recover, it became a movement. People marched with Naomi on nothing signs. Veterans, nurses, janitors, immigrants, and even skeptical ex-coops rallied. Her face was on mirror. Her words were on classrooms. She wasn't just running for office, she was rewriting what power could look like. And even though her hands still shook, her voice remained steady. Even though danger loomed, she moved forward because some dreams, no matter how dangerous, are worth everything. Even your peace, even your past, even the version of you that once said, "Slap me if I ever run for president." She smiled now at the memory, not with regret, but with gratitude. Because maybe that slap was life itself, waking her up to the destiny she couldn't run from. The countdown to election day resumed with a new kind of urgency, one Naomi had never felt before. Every handshake, every rally, every word from her lips carried the unspoken knowledge that someone had tried to take her sister to stop her dream. And yet, for reasons she couldn't fully explain, Naomi didn't become harder. She became deeper, more present. Her speeches shifted, no longer just political manifestos. They became confessions, sermons, battle cries. She told voters the truth, not just about healthcare and education, but about fear, about what it meant to want something so badly. You do sacrifice your peace for it. She talked about loneliness of leadership, the addiction of perfection, and the trauma of constantly being strong. People listened like they were hearing their own buried stories rise through their voice. One man drove 14 hours just to give her a hug and whisper, "I buried my daughter last year. You made me believe in something again." Naomi cried on stage for the first time, not from exhaustion, but from the unbelievable weight of being a mirror to millions. Behind the scenes, however, chaos whispered like smoke under locked doors. The FBI's protective task force assigned to her campaign uncovered encrypted documents that linked multiple political PACs to bribery, media manipulation, and targeted psychological operation. The web was bigger than anyone imagined. And right in the center of it all was a man Naomi never expected, Senator Grayson Wolf, the same man whose AD had once recruited from her behind a coffee counter. Wolf, who had publicly endorsed her campaign with charisma and fake humility, was quietly funding the very machine that tried to destroy her. When confronted, Wolf didn't deny it. In a chilling private meeting inside the Capitol, he said, "You were never supposed to survive the primaries. Naomi, you are a useful narrative, not a real threat, but you got greedy." Naomi stared at him across the table, eyes narrowed. "No," she said slowly, voice like thunder wrapped in velvet. "I just stopped asking permission." Wolf smirked. "You never make it to inauguration." Naomi stood. "Then I will die trying, but I won't die quietly." As the days dwindled, Naomi's team moved into lockdown, level up operations. Her rallies was doubled in security. Her hotel rooms were checked for surveillance bugs. Sasha wasn't allowed to walk alone. The entire campaign headquarters functioned like a bunker. Yet, despite all this, Naomi never let the fear show on her face. Not when children ran to hug her, not when widows whispered prayer into her hands, not when veterans saluted her at the airport. She had mastered the art of internal bleeding, smiling while she bled from the soul. But in private, she wrote letters, dozens of them, one to Sasha, one to every team member, one to the American people, and one to herself. In case something happened, in case the dream, after all this, ended in silence instead of victory. And yet, even in those letters, she never wrote the word goodbye. Only, if this is the end, let it mean something. Because Naomi Washington was no longer just chasing history, she had become it. Election day arrived with skies the color of steel and air so electric it felt like God Himself was holding His breath. The streets across America buzzed with lines, old people in wheelchairs, teenagers voting for the first time, mothers with toddlers, former Falcon reclaiming their voices. It was not just an election, it was an exile. It was an Isel. Naomi cast her vote quietly, wearing a hoodie and sunglasses, slipping into her old high school jean like a ghost returning to life. She kissed the ballot before dropping it. That's for 7 years old me, she whispered. Then she looked at the tiny girl beside her in line, clinging to her father's hand. And that's for her. The rest of the day was a blur of interview, closed door meetings, and waiting. So much waiting. By 10 p.m., she sat with Sasha, her campaign manager Dante, and a handful of staff in Modest's office, watching numbers climb, state flamed, counties shocked, the map turned bluer, and then it had an generation. And then, just before midnight, came the call. She had done it. She had win. Cheers erupt, people screamed, phones buzzed with joy, streets exploded with a celebration. But Naomi didn't move. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. She had dreamt of this moment 1,000 times, how it would feel, how she do cry, who she do thank. But in the silence of her victory, all she could hear was her mother's voice. Baby, don't just get there. Mean something when you arrive. Slowly, Naomi stood, trembling. Sasha held her hand. The camera crew turned on. She stepped into the spotlight. Her voice cracked. Tonight, she said, a little girl who stood on a plastic crate in Southside Chicago just became President elect of the United States of America. And she did it with braids in her hair, scars on her heart, and fire in her bones. The crowd outside chanted her name, but in her mind, Naomi whispered one question over and over. What now? What will they try next? And then the unthinkable happened. 2 days after her win, as her transition team was being sworn, a memo leaked, classified anonymous, explosive. It claimed Naomi was not born in the United States, a recycled lie, but this time with forged birth documents from Liberia and Ghana, fake testimonies from family members in Accra, and doctored videos of a woman who looked just like her as a child in foreign village. Consecutive media pounced. The chant showed the birth certificate, returned with vengeance. Conspiracies flew like wildfire. A senator called for a delay in her confirmation. Protesters gathered outside Congress. The country, once jubilant, splintered again. Naomi was advised to hide. She refused. I'm not hiding from liars. I'm not hiding from cowards. Sasha wept. What if they try to arrest you? Naomi smiled through the ache. Then let them try. I was born in this country, but even if I hadn't been, I have earned my place more than anyone in that capital. The FBI traced the forgery to a covert tech firm in Europe, bankrolled by American donors, linked to three sitting senators and two media CEOs. Charges were filed, but the damage was already done. Naomi's inauguration faced unprecedented legal opposition. Weeks dragged. Her transition was stalled. The Electoral College vote was protested by a group of rogue delegates. For the first time in modern history, the nation faced a constitutional crisis not caused by war or economic collapse, but by the fear of black women holding the highest office. Naomi stood in front of the cameras again, tired but unbroken. They wanted me to quit. but I won't.